Like I just said, we've been doing a series of these meetings with our different director groups. So we did meet with the hubs yesterday. We met with OPK directors this morning, and you guys in this afternoon. We have saved the best for last on this Baby Friday. And so appreciate you guys being here. We will be recording this session, and so that will also be available for you if you need to leave or if you miss something, but also to share with colleagues who weren't able to join today. So that will all be there. And then I think with all of that having been said, I'm going to arrange all my technology and start sharing some slides that we're going to go through. And then if I could just ask one of my ELD friends to keep an eye on the chat box, because I can barely drive and sing songs at the same time. I definitely cannot go through slides and talk and read at the same time. So if you have anything, but also we have a pretty good group here today size wise. And so if there is anything that you guys want to just unmute and ask a question about, please feel that you have that empowerment to do so. So let us share the screen, which is not the kind of anxiety growing up I thought I was going to have as an adult, but that is where we're at. So can everybody see the slides? Brett, if you nod, then I know, because you are the only face I can see right now. Thank you, Brett. Appreciate it. So we're going to go through and talk a little bit about coordinated enrollment in Oregon and what that is looking like for us. And as we think ahead, where are we going and what are our visions? So what is coordinated enrollment? Well, coordinated enrollment is a strategy to help ensure that all families are supported in making informed choices. So it's really rooted in that family choice. And it is one of the strategies we use to align ourselves around that common vision of supporting children and families as our ultimate clientele in our systems here. And so through coordinated enrollment, families can access publicly funded ECE programs in their communities that are responsive to the family's needs and preferences and experience in full enrollment. And so with that, it really is an intention of coordinated enrollment is that it's rooted in family choice, that it's meeting families' needs, but it is also meeting program needs around full enrollment. And it is a key facility strategy being facilitated by our early learning hubs and is inclusive of all early childhood partners together. So including the CCRNRs, program grantees, other local business entities, anybody who really is there to support that network for families. So our coordinated enrollment, again, like I say, and you'll hear me say it a lot because I think it's a really important piece, is that it is a family-centered strategy, that it is equitable, that it is a way of embedding a strong multi-sector state system so that families can access information about the programs in their community, about the services each program can offer, to find support for navigating the eligibility, enrollment, and placement process, which can often, even to us who are steeped in it, still give a lot of questions and feel complicated, and to be assured that the unique needs of their children will be addressed and considered. So really, again, looking at how do we support families through this process? How do we continue to give them all of the information so that families are empowered to make the best decision possible for themselves? It's a system building strategy as well. So it is something that's called out in Raise Up Oregon as one of our strategies to creating an early learning system that is coordinated and aligned. It is a place where needs and preferences are used to inform decision making, and that where we can continue to move closer into being that family-centered alignment. So it can include more than just early learning programs for preschool, but also, like we said, we have a representation here around Baby Promise as well. So you'll see a fun little graph with arrows and stuff that will help us kind of see that flow around how do we help families in these positions. So who all is involved in this? Pretty much everybody. Successful implementation actively includes all of the ECE programs that are publicly funded. So we have Head Start, Oregon Pre-K, Preschool Promise, Baby Promise. We have two K12 programs located in school districts, as well as early intervention, early childhood, and special education. And so we really want to support all of those different entities, both in their involvement in coordinated enrollment, but also in their understanding of coordinated enrollment and their and feeling supported in articulating the intention of coordinated enrollment to others. Any questions so far? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. So how to coordinate enrollment is really sort of the burning question around building a system for coordinated enrollment. And so Oregon has been working closely with consultants, and Anne has been really leading our charge and helping us all build our own knowledge and ability around it. And so Oregon will be operationalizing coordinated enrollment in 3 areas of community work that's related to enrollment for publicly funded ECE programs. And so there's the marketing, outreach, recruitment. So how are families aware of the pathways, eligibility determination and programming? So how are we determining which families are eligible for which programs and providing that information to them? And then selection and pay and placement. So helping families move through the evaluating their options and getting to that enrollment place in the program of their choice. So we are taking a phased implementation approach in this. And so you have been kind of aware over the last year, we've been focusing on some certain pieces around that. And then as we continue to move forward in our cycle of evaluation and setting new goals, we have some planned out implementation around coordinated enrollment. So you'll see there in the first column, for program year 21-22, which we're moving into, at a minimum, we are focusing on building up local planning and local structures around that recruitment, interest forms, selection timing, building coordinated recruitment with partners, which would include Head Start's OPK, Preschool Promise, Baby Promise, those partners, implementing a CA plan and receiving TA on completion of that, and a self-assessment reflection process. And so also looking at communities to say, you know, is there space to do a little bit more and reach towards the maximum around scaling community-wide recruitment and referral efforts, community branding efforts. We know that in some regions, they've already worked on that in partnership with OPKs and hubs. So is there more to do in there? And then building those partnerships with CCRNRs around Baby Promise enrollment, which is, we know Baby Promise is already connected to the CCRNRs. So then moving forward, continuing to build up on those pieces and those key activities. Are there any questions? I thought maybe I saw something pop up in the chat. Okay. So this is probably one of our most important slides here to really think about what are the key activities. And so in a coordinated system, not all partners are going to have the same activities that we're focusing on. So we are going to be asking different partners to think about strategies around different key activities. And so for our CCRNRs, the key activities are really going to be around that central role supporting providers to be successful in publicly funded programs and engaging with plan in and implement coordinated enrollment programs or plans. So some of that may look like beginning to have conversations with providers who are not yet publicly funded, who may be interested in it. And this is a portion of being publicly funded that a program may want to understand more deeply before they decide to apply for Preschool Promise. Or if it's a larger entity, if there were OPK spaces or federal Head Start spaces, that those kinds of things that came available, wanting to understand it a little bit more. And then also another key role for CCRNRs is to participate in planning. So, you know, where to send families who are interested in programming. Understanding 211 is connected to families in the community, communities coordinated enrollment context, supporting role and placements and sustaining enrollment. as well as contributing to really helping, I think, even programs understand how to present themselves to families, and what families are looking for when they are looking for an early learning experience for their children, because different programs will offer different opportunities. Preschool Promise program on the same street as an OPK program may offer different hours, but OPK may be able to offer different types of services. And so really helping families think about what's important to them to be successful, and how those programs may or may not be a match for those priority points for families. So we have here a little bit of the timelines. And so that's something that we are really thinking about and moving forward to, is how do we create how do we create timelines that set everyone up for success, and support family enrollment, but also support in planning ahead, while knowing that there may be a shift in how we have previously thought about enrollment. Just making sure that we're moving towards alignment on that piece. And that shift can feel challenging the first time we shift. Anytime you try something new, there's rough patches. And so we invite feedback, and we invite ideas around how to support those shifts for families and programs. So you'll see here, we are moving forward with updating our ECE sector planning for those of you who may have been involved or aware of that previously. And I think it was about 2 years ago now, the years blend together. There was something that we looked at to really help us identify priority populations. So in looking at investments in early learning and ensuring that we are investing in the communities and helping us reach those who have been historically disenfranchised. So how are we reaching out on that? And so part of that role for CCRNRs is participating on these regional stewardess committees as a program partner, and providing information that informs the sector planning around family need and preference, and providing referral and provider demand information. Then there's different pieces around the coordinated slot allocation request. So there'll be sector planning involved. There's an RFA process, for example, for Preschool Promise as we expand. So asking you guys to participate in Regional Steward Committee again as a program partner to provide information around the capacity within communities. And so not only what does that family need look like, but what does the capacity to meet that family need look like? And then part of that work then becomes how do we start filling in those gaps, which we've talked about with CCRNRs around that workforce development and quality building pieces. And then of course, supporting providers in that RFA process. And then slot allocation, you'll see here supporting providers with their slot allocations and inclusionary supports. So that is looking like January. So we're kind of moving through the fall into the winter, spring, and then trying to move towards helping families get enrolled in programs and knowing where their children will be going for early learning in the fall, in around the summertime, spring, which aligns with some of what OPK has done in the past, but really looking at how are we thinking ahead about what slots are going to be open and bringing families into those slots. And then again, an assessment period. So providing partner feedback and participating in the assessment process. That's actually a portion that is also going on right now. So some of you may be contacted by PSU to participate in providing some feedback. And we really do hope that you will be able to make time to provide that feedback. It's going to be really valuable to us as we continue to look at our programs. And then slot reallocation. So how can you participate as a program partner if we are looking at programs who perhaps had slots, but for other reasons need to reallocate those to different programs. So again, I think that will really bring us back to the conversation around capacity and readiness, and how are we working as a community to prepare programs and help programs and families rise together. Are there any questions on this slide? There's a lot of information. I feel like I may be talking a little too fast, but I've been working off of like 5 cups of coffee today. Baby Fridays got me going. So.
I have a question, Andy, and I'm sorry if you may have mentioned this before. I was Just looking at this March 1st date as far as developing the coordinated enrollment plan for the communities, it seems to me one of the challenges that we've seen is that Head Start and all of these school programs are already in active enrollment. And by the time this is, I mean, by at least by when spring break is over, they are fully engaged in completing, getting those springtime events together for their new kindergartners for sure, but for enrollment in general. And I'm just curious about it. That I know there was some delays, I think, even this year. So sometimes these efforts are coming way after some traditional lines that some of our sites have for enrolling in the fall. So I'm curious about that, I guess. Maybe I'm the only one, I don't know.
No, I don't think you're the only one, and certainly not the first person to ask that question. I think as we look at our timeline, we want to align it as much as possible, and we know that there's still a lot for us to continue to think about and learn around that, and looking to our local communities and the partnerships around local communities to help align some of those timelines, because we do know that we have an enrollment season. And you're right, for a lot of like the OPK programs, that enrollment season can begin around spring break or even be wrapped up by spring break. And so how can we support starting in January with those slot allocations and knowing where those slots are, and then start creating the relationship within coordinated enrollment to connect families with programs. And knowing also that programs like OPK, most programs will have rolling enrollments. There's a loud car about to go by. That there is an enrollment season, but they are also required to be fully enrolled throughout the year, and that turnover does happen. And so I think that there will be parts in our timeline that maybe don't necessarily make a perfect match, but that enrollment is not something that is one and done. That everybody will continue to work together around that.
So do you think there's some possibility of having some, I guess, community responsive? I don't know. I think what I had heard is they didn't want anybody to enroll until it was released to say, yes, go ahead and start this enrollment process. So of course we've got programs chomping at the bit to be able to do that. And so I think that's what I'm curious about, if there's a little leeway there.
Yeah, and I think that when
That's
you
true.
say that, what it reminds me of is that sometimes because of granting and the way contracts happen, is that sometimes we have to wait on the enrollment referral process until we're guaranteed that that person is a preschool promise grantee, those pieces. But I think I saw Anne getting ready to say something.
You were heading right there, Andy. I think like really key in this is, if this is our key activities as we're fully implemented, the question becomes like, how soon do we get towards that, and how do we create that space that the programs and community are aligning and driving towards that. And so key to that has been a big crunch we've all been under in not having fully executed preschool promise contracts until way later than when enrollment would typically take place. So part of this strategy and moving towards an annual timeline that looks a little more aligned is to say that also involves some changes in how our allocation processes happen at ELD to be able to support that. So I think there's definitely space to say, how can we rely on those in community who know, experience, see the enrollment timelines that work specifically for families in those communities, to be able to inform us and create those plans that get us closer to alignment than we have. But that does involve a change in some of our allocation process specifically for preschool promise too.
Thanks. That makes sense. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big systems change, a community that we're undertaking here, and it's going to take a lot of coordination and partnering, and understanding all of those. And like Ann said, this is not there's a long-term plan and give and take. And as we move towards some of these goals, we're going to learn a lot from our partners as well.
Hi, I'm sorry, I do have a question. Is Head Start, the community partnership programs, included in this coordinated enrollment?
Yes, so it does include Head Starts and OPKs.
So is that, when you say that, does, because the community partnership might be under Head Start, it's a different system than Head Start itself, but it would be getting federally funded money. So yes, that would be a part of it as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
okay.
yeah, and so the child care partnerships through Head Starts would also be participating. And those are conversations, part of the conversation we had with OPK this morning was around, 4 slots that are only federally funded. What does this look like? And that's part of that big system change, and bringing all of the partners to the table to have those conversations within communities too.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? Okay, I just need to close my door real quick. Yay, working at home.
Hey, Andy, can I
Yeah.
make a request? Would you mind resharing your screen? We are seeing your outline view instead of the slideshow view, and this slide has a lot of tiny writing.
Yeah, let me stop my video and see if that is helpful. Did that change anything? Was that helpful?
Andy, if you're able to zoom in on the slide, I think that might
Whoa,
help. Too helpful.
too helpful, too helpful.
Thank you, that does help.
Does that help, Cassandra? Great.
Yeah.
Whoa, too helpful again. This is a fun little game.
Hey, Andy, there was a question in the chat box.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read it to you.
Thank you, John.
How do school districts who have programs fit into this work?
That is a very good question. So I think, as we mentioned earlier, we definitely see K-12s as partners in this work, as they have either a preschool promise program, or they have their own early learning program that they may be using federal funds for. And similar to the OPK federal fund conversation, those are conversations that communities we hope will have together, and bring those partners to the table to think about that coordination and how they work together, because we know that one entity can't accomplish all of the work alone, and we want to bring everybody into those conversations. So that is a piece that we are hoping to build out with our K-12 colleagues and friends. Okay, so hearing no other immediate questions and trusting that John is not hiding any in the chat box, we did want to just share, back in December, we did meet together and kind of reflect a little bit around this initial implementation of coordinated enrollment, that we all also were very aware and transparent. Like, the last program year was way different than anybody ever expected it to be. And that one thing we saw was that impact on enrollment and on families bringing children into programs, and that programs services look different than any of us had ever learned in school, or prepared, or had experience with before. So knowing that was sort of our wish, our experience in 2020, 2021 program year, we also came together with some reflections. And so we also wanted to just reflect back on some of those, is that, that there was an express wish for this coming year, that we have more collaboration around the enrollment experience for families, and greater alignment, strong relationships that have helped build the system, the relationships between the CCRRs and providers, trusted providers and parents, and providers and community hubs. And then having some excitements around seeing a system where a prenatal family can log onto a website or call a number and get connected to services. And that one application, that one point of entry to all services, that I think that, for some of us who have been in these conversations for a while, has been part of that conversation, is how can a community really support a family prenatal on, and building that network around, and helping families with that warm handshake and that no wrong door approach get to a place that meets their needs and their preferences. Is there anything, I'm wondering, when people look at these, that still resonate or maybe has changed since since December? I know not everybody on this call was able to join us in December as well. Well, so we've built in some time for some small group guiding questions, and we can move into breakout rooms, but I'm also kind of wondering with our size, if folks feel like they would, like there's space in this room to kind of go through some of these guiding questions together. But we are happy, I don't know, opinions, thoughts? Oh, hi, Shannon. Now I'm expanding out and seeing folks who join us. I think, yeah. And did you want to break us into the breakout rooms, or do I need to do that?
Nope, I've got them all set if you're ready. So
I think,
One more question. Do you want to answer that beforehand and then jump in?
yeah,
So
that's fine. I can give it.
This question comes with an apology from Mary Wolf because she just wanted to know if families would be connected to ERDC as part of the coordinated enrollment effort.
I think that is part of the goal, is that aligned system and that warm handoff, and especially as we move towards the DELC, Department of Early Learning and Care, and bringing ERDC under our DELC umbrella, to how do we continue to align that and ensure that we have those coordinated efforts for families. And I see Anne nodding, which makes me feel like I got that one. That's a relief. Yeah. So we're going to break into some small groups. We built in about 20 minutes. I don't know if that still feels like the right amount of time, but we have some of these questions and we can throw them in the chat box too. But really hoping to hear from you all, what's exciting about this plan. What are your wishes for the early learning system through coordinated enrollment? What barriers do you see in accomplishing this plan from your perspective? And if you've experienced those barriers, what was that like? And then, what attempts have there been made to address the barriers, and whether they've been successful or not? We all want to learn from each other's successes, but I think there's also real value from learning from each other what was tried and didn't work, so that we're not just replicating and rebuilding the same flat tire every time, but that we really are learning from each other and avoiding pitfalls. And so I think that I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And Anne is going to zoom us into little rooms, and then some of us will be in those rooms to help facilitate and take some notes. And we are going to ask you to please pressure someone into volunteering to share out with the rest of us when we get zoomed back together.
all right, I'm opening them all now. See you over there.
Thank you.
Hey, Mary, it looks like you should have an invite to go to room 1. There we go.
Oh, there she is. Okay, good.
Thanks for your patience.
No, it's fine. It's great.
Yeah, it was a good guess. It was at my cat house. They do this thing, the cats, where they have a spin move before they leave the box, and we're like, why? Who taught you that? Why are you doing that? Why do you think you need to spin and then run as fast as possible to escape? Because it is not. It doesn't lend to cleanliness in my home, so there is a lot of scooping and sweeping.
You have to buy that no track litter, because then it's impossible for them to scatter it across the room.
It's a lie, John.
I know it's a lie. I know.
Big litter is lying to you. Big litter just wants you to believe it. It's a lie. I've tried it all. It's all a lie.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh, we're recording now.
Pepper.
What a cutie. Look at Taya's dog. Oh my goodness.
It was these paddle paws making
Look at those fluffy paws.
the sound,
That's
I think.
incredible.
Sorry. Puppy and
Yeah. Puppy intermission, animal intermission. It's a Zoom must. So I don't know about you guys, but my group had a great conversation. And I thought it was really exciting. I told my group that this is my third of these meetings and my third time going through it, and that it warmed my heart that for people to speak so highly of the things that excite them. So I appreciate that all, but I want to see if other groups want to share out some of the things they talked about.
So we talked about family choice. That's very exciting, that it's a system that really honors that, and the alignment of early education systems, as well as just excited that there's a roadmap to follow. We've got some dates on the calendars of activities that we know, the targets that we want to hit.
Thank you, Lynette, and thank you for going first. Appreciate it. Anybody else from Lynette's group wanted to add anything? How many groups did we have, Anne? Were there 3? Okay. All right. Anybody want to add from another group? Want to jump in?
I can jump in. What was our number, Anne? Was it 3? Group 3? Yeah, we too had a really good discussion, and Anne took copious notes, and I'm going to try and capture the salient points. So what was exciting about this was, like Lynette said, the family-centered approach. And Taya shared her experience with one, it wasn't for childcare, it was for a different request, but the one phone call and everything laid out for her. So there wasn't a lot of back and forth and trying to figure things out. Everything was set up. So just excited about that. And then also excited about having a timeline in the hopes that contracts can get done in a timely manner as well, with a timeline laid out in a plan. So that was another point of excitement. And are we going through each question, Andy, or shall I go ahead and pull up some of the other things? Just
I think go ahead and pull up. Yeah. Folks,
Okay.
share a little bit of everything. That's fine.
Okay. And then some wishes. So hoping that there's more, what can happen in coordinated enrollment is that programs kind of connecting and aligning in more respect for example, between Head Start and family childcare, that there will be options and kind of building the respect for each of the different types of programs in supporting families and understanding what they're each can offer. And then let's see what else. The hope also school districts are a part of this mix, would love to see free and public preschool, maybe, programs that are not part of Preschool Promise to also be part of the coordinated enrollment options. Let's see. And then some of the barriers, enrollment, full enrollment is a concern. Being able to really fill all the slots in all the different types of programs. And then so many families need full-time care, and if the majority are like Head Start programs don't offer that. So what can we do to make sure that we're targeting and supporting working families at this income level so that they can get full-time care? And eligibility requirements are a little bit different as well. Another concern is looking at baby promise, children being prioritized for preschool promise, and that's not always happening. So how can we make sure we work out those glitches as well? Let's see. I think I've captured everything. Oh, staffing. Oh, that's a big one. That's a big concern, is staffing for the programs themselves, being able to find qualified workforce who will be willing to take the pay and are available and apply for the job. So that is a concern. So did anyone want to add anything, something that you really want to make sure is heard from the group? Anne, did I miss anything?
Well, the one I was adding, I thought a interesting point that Brett sort of laid on in our last couple minutes was, what could incentives look like that really support this, so that, particular for Head Starts where, there are requirements that are held to or will become January around enrollment, and how can we think about incentives in a way so that we have everyone on the same page, or that we're sort of driving towards the same goal when this can feel like a threat if you know that enrollment is a big thing to be held to. So definitely wanted to make sure that was part of the conversation too.
Thanks, Anne. So I think unless anyone wants to add anything else, I think we've got all of our points.
One of the things that we talked about in our group as well was, and Margie, you touched on this, was just the continuity. So that baby promise to preschool promise, and that we have slots we don't have families waiting or gaps. That was one of the concerns that we brought up. And then transition as well. So as they transition into the K12 system, or at the end of that program year, helping them transition and knowing what to expect as they move between programs.
Thank you, Lynette. John?
Yeah, I was just going to tag on to that because we were talking about the rolling enrollment nature of some of the programs like CCI. Is it CCI? I feel like that. Okay, yeah. I was like, is that the right acronym? And of course, Baby Promise that are year round. And so like when the parent needs it and a slot is available, all those things coming together can be quite complicated. And so, and then we were also with Baby Promise because of the COVID, the enrollment entry level income levels were increased to the 250% of federal poverty. So it subsequently makes it quite difficult for a family to be able to get into preschool promise when they're transitioning out if they were above income. So just things to think about it in transitioning.
Thank you. I would say in our group, a lot of those same points came up, around the one of the challenges being at the different eligibility pieces, both in the process and in the income. And so the importance of understanding those different eligibility requirements, but also in creating a process where families don't have to replicating applications and going back and forth. So there was definitely excitement around that aligned one stop for families that coming up. Also a lot of excitement around CCRNRs being a place to help build that quality to prepare for being publicly funded and contributing to not just the TA around the RFA process, but really seeing that as that final hoop to get through, but that relationship back up start so much earlier for programs, and seeing the excitement of where focused childcare networks can support that that growth in folks, and then also seeing a wish in the early learning system for additional investments in focused childcare networks and that network learning, because that peer-to-peer learning can be so important, but that it's most successful when there's somebody there helping to guide those conversations to positive growth mind oriented conversations. And so, but then also knowing that some of the barriers may be around communication, and it may be that there's a need for a more clear process for grantees who are not connecting with CCRNRs around qualities, especially for those preschool promise programs who have it in a requirement, but if they're not returning to the phone calls and really participating in that quality building, what is that process there? And what is that process when programs are not meeting those quality indicators for that are in their grant, and what's the role of the CCRNR there, especially when also representing to the early learning hubs or to families that this is the type of program that they have available in the community. And then also excited to think about moving this way to move programs into place with funding, knowing that those programs are some that where salary investments are going into and a more living wage is being created. I don't know if anybody else from my group wanted to add anything or correct anything. We made an agreement that I would speak for the group, but only if the group yelled out, "Andy, you're wrong," if I got something wrong. So now's your opportunity, guys.
Well, this is Shannon. I just wanted to add to, a million years ago when we were doing referrals, some of the things that occurred is that the program wasn't performing or wasn't meeting the quality, or there were some issues happening that the referral process, there was a stop in it or a pause in the referral process. So maybe connecting coordinated enrollment with those issues, because they're going to rely on that marketing and everything.
Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate that.
I have an opportunity that I wanted to share that I just thought of, so I forgot to share earlier, but is to also align with other eligibility systems like SNAP and TANF and ERDC, that we aren't asking families to fill out multiple applications. So not just the coordinated enrollment application, one application process for early education, but are there other ways to look at eligibility that also doesn't put an extra burden on families?
Thank you for that, Lynette. Any other comments, questions?
I would assume that you're already working with ERDC, especially since it's going to slide into the early learning division, but they are doing that type of system where they are coordinating. It's a one application process for all things. And I'm wondering if we're looking into the lessons learned that they're doing right now, what were some of the pitfalls, what were some of the things that were helpful, that type of thing. So I would assume that's going on, but I just thought I'd throw that out just in case.
Yeah, I can share as we talk about what ERDC transfer looks like. I think how do we take, what we saw or what, has been the experience from ODHS, and as ERDC transfers over, what can we take and learn and build from? Definitely a connection there. Thank you for asking that.
And being sure to include inclusive partners and the high need and special need rates in that information.
Mm-hmm.
Well, CCI, I've been using the ERDC system all along, and it's vital for me to be able to find out if a family's eligible, and now using the new one system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's, like Debbie said, I think it's important to as much as possible, not be nickel and diamond people asking for information from multiple sources at multiple times.
Thank you, Deb.
And this really does create that unique opportunity to do this. And that's very exciting. And that's kind of my top wish list, is to help these parents find quality care in the simplest way possible. They already have enough going on in their lives that we don't need to be frustrating them through that process. And so I think it's very exciting that that coordination is happening, as well as the alignment is happening too between the two divisions becoming one.
Well, if there are no other questions or comments, I can check the chat box real quick. So it sounds like there were some really good conversations in our small groups. I appreciate everybody in thinking through this. I appreciate everyone for holding families at the center of the conversation and thinking around program quality and partnership. We will be sharing the recording out. We know we didn't have some folks on this call, and we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to hear the information. And I'm sure that, you know, if as questions may come up, as you think about other things, as you're talking to your staff, there is definitely going to be more opportunities to continue these conversations, both here with us, but also within your communities as well. And I also want to remind everybody, August 10th and 11th, Learning Collab, and that there will be other opportunities to think about roles and partnerships with the early learning hubs, and in coming together as the big hub. So everybody at the table is the hub. You guys are part of that partnership and part of that community, the early learning hubs, OPKs, preschool promise grantees, all being part of really that leadership from the community that is thinking about community needs and priorities, and how to continue to raise up the community. I don't know, Anne or John or Margie, if anybody else has any other words they want to say to end on.
Just, yeah, appreciate, like Andy just said, really appreciate your thoughts and reflections there. I'm sure we'll be in quite a bit of dialogue as we keep moving, you know, towards this big system change. So just appreciate FaceTime with you all as we keep going.
Yeah. All right. Well, congratulations. We've got 9 minutes left in our day. Use it well. Enjoy. It's good to see you guys, and I'll see you all shortly, I'm sure.
Thanks.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you, buddy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you.